get yourself together. Check 1, 2. Good evening, everybody. I believe you just don't know what it took to get online tonight. First of all, good evening, everybody. It's Divided We Stand at 9:02 Eastern Standard Time. And it's good to see everybody. I don't even know who's here yet. Let's get the window up. Look at the comments. So I see Trev. Trev, how's it going? Karen. And I'm sure Joey's there. So it's good to see everybody, at least everybody who's here. If the sound is a bit off, just tell me. Otherwise, if it's good, I'll continue. Hopefully, the background music won't be too loud. You notice I'm just sitting here. It's because I usually am 30 seconds ahead of you guys. Good to see Kim. All right. Thanks, Trev. I appreciate that. Well, again, good evening, everybody. So as I said during the introduction, I was really lucky to be online tonight. Nothing wrong with my computer, but if you look at the background, I promised myself to paint the room when I had time off, which I did this week. I had obviously a 4-day weekend, so my wife and I went crazy trying to get all of this together, and I just finished about an hour ago, and it took 2 days. So it was something that was really, really necessary and long overdue, and I'm sure it looks a lot better, at least seemingly from the view here. Yes. Tonight I wanted to get a little bit philosophical about things rather than starting right off with politics. As I had mentioned, I was, obviously painting this office here the last 2 days, and it involves shifting a lot of this stuff into our bedroom in preparation. So this morning, early in the morning before dawn, I got up to go to the bathroom, and being in that groggy state that you have when you're just getting up, I fell. I crashed into the bookcase that I moved over. In fact, it's right behind me there. It was a nasty fall, and I hit in like 3 different places, but I'm fine. But it's interesting because as I was falling down, everything kind of again crashed. It was a huge thud. Ronnie thought I was in bad trouble. How you doing, Joey? And I distinctly remember as I was falling, I'm saying, there's no way I can control the fall here. I'm going down. And I don't know what is going to happen because I didn't know. I forgot what was in front of me. But here's the thing. This is why I bring this up. Ordinarily, I wouldn't even bring it up. But I was thinking today that this experience that I had of being in this state of knowing that I have no control over my situation, and I see it happening, and not knowing where this thing's going to go. Before you're right. Thank you, Kim. All right, let's do that. Or let me move this over. Yeah. So it reminded me of myself when I was 11. I had an accident with my bicycle. It was a horrific accident, which I obviously survived. But it was close because I split my skull and shoulder, elbow, everything. It was just horrible. But I remember that state right before the accident where I actually went into shock, but right before it, I knew I was in trouble. And even though I was 11, I had this sense that something's terribly, terribly wrong, and I have no control. It was the same exact feeling. And it brought me back 51 years or whatever it is to that moment. And I'm now going through that in my head, that experience back in 1971 and the experience this morning. And I was thinking that in both cases, there was, in addition to knowing that I am not in control, at that point, there was nobody there. And it was as though, it's almost a sense of a death that's about to occur, because you just don't know what's going to happen. Now, today wasn't anything horrible, but at the moment it could have been. And I'm using this as a metaphor for, obviously, for what, at least in my state of tune, what I feel like right now about what's going on in the world. I feel like I have no control over what is happening, or at least very little control. A good friend of mine is in tough straits right now. I don't know what the outcome will be of that. But because I have will, I keep going. And I accept the fall, so to speak. For most people, and I mean most people have a sense of hope. The idea that out there's something better. And I'm not sure, from my point of view, that that's such a good thing. I think it keeps one going when all else is lost. But for me, as I've said many, many times, it's had a kind of a destructive effect. And I think the good thing about what happened this morning and what happened 51 years ago was that I realized who I am. Even in that moment back then, I didn't say, oh, God help me, or, can anybody help me? It was just like, I'm facing something and I'm going to have to accept the consequences. And again, the fall this morning was, I got scraped up and this and that, but it wasn't any big deal. But again, at that moment, I had no idea where this thing was going to go. Was the bookcase going to fall on me? Was I going to hit my head? It was 20 minutes from dawn. And you just didn't know. I didn't know at the time. But it has reinforced my philosophy on life, in that, for me, I don't have this hopium. And I don't mean that in any stigmatizing way, any of you who do have hope. But it's just never been a part of the way I operate. But the one thing I did have this morning, as I did have in 1971, in both cases, I accepted it. not knowing what will be. And this gives me, if there is a hope, it does give me the idea that when that time does come, whether it's through some external factors, climate change, some nuclear cataclysm, or just some health issue, that I will accept it, because you have to at some point. And I think because of those experiences, I know how I will react. And it's an honest feeling. I've seen too many people robbed of their hope. And again, I'm not suggesting that anybody who out there believes in hope give it up. And I'm not casting aspersions on anybody who does hope, because again, there is something to it as far as this idea that something out there might be better. There's an expression in Russian called avos, which isn't exactly like hope, but it's the idea that something is out there just waiting to come, and perhaps it'll be okay. That's not what drives me. And seeing what has happened to this country over the last 5 or 6 years, I have good reason to feel the way I do. And by necessity, I think we will be forced to be realistic about what's happening. I was watching Jim McHenry's video this morning on Facebook. It was good. Jim always has these really, really nice videos discussing climate change. He's obviously very frustrated with the political aspect of not dealing with climate change. I understand that. I don't take his opinion full-fledged. As you know, I do believe there are people trying to do things, trying to help, but we have one party that's obviously trying to thwart any good thing that could happen. But he mentioned something that I thought was actually a good thing, that Jim mentioned as something kind of bad. At least he alluded to it, and that would be, that the price of beef is going to go really, really high. Now, for some of you out there, that might seem like a bad thing. That the price of beef is going to go high. We won't be able to feed the cattle, and there won't be enough beef. Well, you know how I feel about that. I'm extremely pleased. By necessity, good things may happen. There's really no need, obviously, to eat meat. And I blame myself. I've done it plenty of times in my life. It wasn't until I started really thinking about the realities of slaughterhouses, how when we eat meat, we essentially have assassins do the work for us. But there are things happening which I think are good. I mean, you have good meat substitutes. Recently they were talking about stem cell meat, growing. There's a company I forget the name of the company, but the suffering aspect of slaughterhouses could be a thing in the past. I mean, and that's the whole ball game. I mean, life in general is a slaughterhouse. And if you yourself haven't witnessed it, you wait around long enough and it'll happen to you. HLS. Now, this is the first comment I've seen today, so it's a good one too. I really like it. Life is 99.99999% suffering. Yes. It certainly is. If we're going to look at it logically. That's why I don't think it's really good to be happy-pappy or rejoice in one's successes. I think it was Voltaire, or one should do his or her best to conceal your conceits. But unfortunately, with this system of evolution, we're driven to be what we are. All right, let me see. My first comment deserves reading. Well, I haven't read them, HLS. I'll look. Let's go back. I'll be glad to do it. I have a video or two to show you today. Nothing really big, because, again, I was doing that back there. All right, audio is good. Thank you, Kim. I'm obviously behind here. Joey. All right. Okay, I'm trying to get to yours, HLS. The past is a memory with an infinity of perspectives. There's no predetermined future. With an infinity of possibilities, there is only nowhere. The present moment is called a present because it is a gift. Now, here or nowhere. Time to smell the flowers. Animal agriculture is torture. It certainly is. Well, I agree with you, HLS. There is really only the present, and even the future is tomorrow's present. The past is instructive. But I'll say this much, HLS, that although the present is all important, it is my view, because I'm a determinist, that the major force in our lives, or in anybody's life for that matter, is the past. Everything from our DNA to our behavior, the past is this huge background noise, that pushes us to the present. Now, the present is the most important thing. But because we are flesh computers, shaped and molded from the past is extremely important to understand, because it gives you a good idea of why I am who I am and how you are who you are. It's an incredible force. And even though we are given the present, our past will give us our disposition and it will make our present. Yeah, I know it gets kind of philosophical and wordy there, but I'm convinced now that everything that I say and do is basically an algorithm that leads me to the moment. But again, the past is extremely important because it it's more of a force than the present. It pushed everything here. Yeah. And nothing we can do. It's just this huge force behind us. It pushes us to where we are. But yes, we only live in the present. That's all we'll ever have. Now, like a clock. And then we are bound to infinity, right? Used to be a Renaissance song called, I think, Bound to Infinity. And though we are bound to infinity, there will be others to take our place, suffer the same fate. It's very, very difficult. I don't want to go too philosophical tonight, but it certainly could depress everybody. I mean, you can't raise your fist up and call this thing a victory, even if you are self-actualized according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like you said, 99.9%, it's brutal. And I know where you're going with that. It's what Dawkins would say, that 99.99% of the species died. Which isn't the main problem, it's the dying part. It's tough. Now, I don't want to get morbid because, we do want to limit the suffering. So it's our charge to try to make our lives more pleasant and to make the lives of others more pleasant and try to limit that suffering. And that's one hell of a task. It's one hell of a task. Yeah. Let's go through some more comments here before I go on to some videos. Hi, Karen. Sometimes some shit happens, just in a not so happy way. Right. Very unlovely things do happen. No, Karen, I think he's right. I think he's right. If you take the totality of life, meaning the animals, I mean, it's complete carnage out there. So I'd have to agree with HLS 100%. Again, if we look at life from our own perspective, in other words, the universe as we see it, we're jaded. I mean, you might have a good day, but it's, in all fairness, it's why you can't jump up and down. For example, if you're the boxing champion, you really shouldn't jump up and down after you just knocked this guy out, because he tried really hard and he got busted up. He's the one you should be applauding, not yourself. That kind of thing. We learn from our past and hopefully take some wisdom and move forward. Yeah, I think, and that's a good point, Kim. That's a good point, because I mentioned this to my students, and something that took me a long time to learn. And sometimes I have to relearn this. And that is, what is the quickest way of learning? Well, a lot of people say learning from your own mistakes, but that's not true. That takes too long, to develop. Oh, that hurts. I won't do that again. Well, I did it a second time. I better not do that. But it takes a lot. So I think the best thing is if we learn from the mistakes of others, that's the fastest way to learn. Someone teaching languages would say, okay, look, you're going to save yourself a lot of time if you don't just stick with grammar. You want to go and you want to speak with these people. You want to do a little bit of this. You want to watch some movies. You want to listen to some music. Whatever the advice is, if that person has achieved and you're able to learn from that person's mistakes, you're going to cut the time down. So in that sense, the past is really, really important. Now, historical past, as Dave used to always say, as he borrowed from Mark Twain, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. I don't think you can bank on knowing exactly what Putin's going to do or what Trump's going to do in any one moment, but you can bet as autocrats, they're going to be shady, and you're going to have a long fight to get these people out of there if you're lucky enough to do it. So in that sense, you learn. So the past helps you, but it also makes you what you are. Even if it's 5 minutes ago or 1,000 years ago. It's so big, the past, and not until my later years did I figure that out from other people. Nothing original from what I'm saying, folks. And I think that's important too. I think Vlad Vexler, he's a philosopher, Russian guy. He's got health issues. He talked with some students from Oxford. He says, you don't have to be original. It doesn't have to be even correct. But you have to learn to think for yourself. And I think that's important. Even if thinking for yourself really is the past, whatever that past was, somebody saying, I don't listen to that person. Maybe I'll do that now. I try not to let the past define my life. I'm a different person. Yeah, well, that's true. And that's, what was the thought experiment? Theseus's ship, right? And in that thought experiment, Theseus said, if you have a ship and it starts losing pieces of wood and it slowly gets replaced, is it that ship or not when it comes into port? And I believe it was Thomas Hobbes who added to that. What if somebody picked up those boards and rebuilt the ship? Now, you or I could discuss whether that ship is that ship or not, but it's just a metaphor for what we are. And that is, we're kind of like the boards. And how we define that ship is kind of like how we define ourselves. Is the ship the captain? Is it the sailors? Is it the physical ship? And I believe Theseus was bringing this up because of Athens. Athens lasted, 200 years at its height. And I guess he was upset with the politicians at the time. I mean, look, it's over 2,000 years ago. But it does bring up a good point that we, like that ship, change, even physically change. I think our atoms after 30 or 40 or 50 years change. And that's true. But the thing that I'm saying is that as those boards are replaced, there has to have something happen to get to that point. And this is why I think the way I do. It took a while to get to this point, and I may get to another point later if somebody can convince me otherwise. But through the years, there's definitely been a change. I mean, that's why all of us probably say, if I'd love to go back and change things if I had a second chance. And even that's problematic as a thought experiment, because if everybody was afforded that opportunity of going back and changing one's life, well, now the other people are going to change their lives. And maybe not for the better. I don't think you get around it. But of course, yes, we do change. But again, there's nothing internal about our change unless it's physical. The change is coming from the outside. Oh, that's right. Maybe I should do it that way. Theseus. It was a great thought experiment. Hello, Epi. If time is relative, from 2:24 a.m. Sunday, brothers, it's good to see you. I mean, honestly, it means a lot to me because I know that you're up in the middle of the night there and you're watching this. It's just, it's amazing to me, and I really appreciate it. It's good that you're all talking with each other. It's just wonderful, and a true Scot. My Scottish Terriers, I worship them. I used to put, what was this the song? For Christ's sake, Epi, help me out. That famous song, Scotland the Brave, is that it? With my dogs, they go running around. Scotland the Brave. Those dogs are brave. Karen, it takes too much time to learn the hard lessons. Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's best to take the advice of people who have gone through it, and of course, you have to follow through. And by the way, I'm not again. Don't go by me. You know, I've made the same mistakes here. I'm just facilitating a conversation. But many times when I learn hard lessons, I think one of the basic ones is from an Al Stewart song. Who's Scottish, by the way, I believe. I think he is. Anyway, there's a song called, what is it called? It's called, If It Doesn't Come Naturally, Leave It. And, I was, if you notice, I don't have as many books here. I had all these college books, right? And I looked at them and I said to Ronnie, I said, why do I have these up here? It was some type of nostalgia or memento that I had there. And I was thinking, I've got to get I don't want to read these things. These are business textbooks from the 1970s. Why was I holding on to those? I'm not going to read them. And I think it came to me that it's just not natural to me. You'll know when it's right? You're bored the shit of something, you say, pfft. It's like going to some type of affair or party. You really don't want to be there. Go. Yeah. I think that's a problem for, well, I'll speak for myself. In my life, one of the regrets, I guess, would be doing things that weren't natural, Stay away from certain people. You kind of hang on with these people. I wouldn't change a thing, good and bad. Oh, I'd change a lot with me. I would definitely want to change things. But I appreciate anybody who can say that. I think I'd do about everything over. Not everything. He will do what's best for Trump. What's that? Jesus. I think we got a bot in here. Trev, can you knock that stuff out of there? I think, Trev, you have a wrench, right? If you would, Trev, just because I know what I'm doing here with the wrench thing. Yeah. Yeah, good. Okay, seems you guys are ahead of me at this. Hi, Veg. Good to see you. I haven't seen your video yet. I know you put one out because I checked mine to make sure I went live here, and I saw yours just come out, so I'll check it out. I remember falling out of a tree, once landing. I thought, boy, I'm heavy, realizing my weight. Impact can make you go ouch, that's for sure. Now, how do you even get a porn bot like on YouTube here? You know, what do they do? I mean, do they just automatically search out? Don't take my advice, Karen, unless you think it's helpful. Believe me, but I appreciate that. This is just my experience. I don't know that you can, you know, even if you could live things over, whether it be worth it, even if you knew what you need to change. Things like Bukowski would say, you know, they ask him about death. He says he was looking forward to it because he said the same patterns start emerging. I mean, I don't want to be dying. That's not good. And I don't want to be necessarily dead. I just want things right. You know, on the other hand, you know, it's not complete torture every second. I mean, if there really were something in control, they could put me under a slab of 2 tons of cement every second and make it unbearable and have me still live with the pain. So I can't think the universe is just evil. It just has a disposition. And in order for things to survive, they have to take from other things. And that's just kind of the way it works. You know, this does relate to actually what I was going to show you. There's this guy here. Let me show you this. Let me go to the web. I don't know if you're familiar with this son of a bitch. This guy's name is Aaron Brink. All right. I don't want any echo or whatever the hell's going wrong. So I will button up in a second when I show you this guy. Now, you might even have seen this guy. Now, you know there was a Colorado shooter. He went to an LGBTQ bar or whatever it was, nightclub. Started shooting people up. And then this asshole, his father, a former MMA guy, you know, he wants to knock people out. And he's also was a porn star. This makes me think about the individual. It's his business, what he does. But it seems like it's all about domination to this guy. And then you're going to see that you wouldn't be surprised that he chose those 2 professions. Because he's got this alpha male attitude. Let's check it out, folks. It's pretty depressing, but you may have seen this already. I'm going to take off my volume, and then we'll see what happens.
There's a shooting involving, you know, multiple people, right. And then I gone later on going to find it's a gay bar.
Yeah, right. And
I was like, oh my God, he's a gay. I just scared her. Oh my God, shit, he's a gay. And he's not gay, so it's
well, you guys had conversations about that. You were.
Oh yeah, I was adamant.
Yeah, you were adamant that gay is bad.
I'm a Mormon. I'm a conservative Republican, and we don't do gay. We don't do gay.
Yeah.
I can't get answers from the attorneys really, but they're saying that somebody's, you know, it's involving a gay bar or some shit. I don't know. I don't know what the heck he did. We have a gay bar. I don't know what's going on.
Well, he's accused of going on a mass shooting at a gay bar and killing 5 people.
Colorado.
Okay, well, that's shit. I'm accused of doing that. I'm not gay. I say that, I'm not gay. There's a shooting involving, you know, multiple people, right. And then I gone later.
We're back. That's weird. It won't switch scenes. Well, you can still see me. That's all that matters, right? Anyway, so that was Aaron Brink, whose sole concern was that his son wasn't gay. Which makes you wonder if he's projecting. Or there's just something about it that he can't handle. And again, look at what he's chosen to do. Now, again, that's his choice. If he wants to be an MMA fighter, he wants to be a porn star, that's his choice. And I'm not a psychologist and I'm not a psychiatrist, but it sure seems to me that this guy, by the way, who was a methamphetamine addict, and arrested for burglary around 6 years ago. I looked it up on Wikipedia. He's sick. And no wonder his son was like that. He kept hearing that all day, and especially if he himself was gay, his son. If he was. Not that it matters. Hearing that kind of shit. I mean, all you have to do, I could take off the volume to this. Let's do that, in fact. Just look at his... We'll look at this a different way. Let's look at this without volume. I like doing this sometimes, you know that. Look at his facial expressions. Can't even look him straight in the eye. He's fucked up. There we go. Again, I'm not a professional, but you wouldn't have to go very far to figure out that that guy's got a problem. And talking about the past and determinism. Whoever his son was, the murderer, the assassin, that kind of shit will make you crazy. I don't think that kid came in crazy. He was made crazy. Let's see what you think. Okay, I'm going to move forward and then I'll come back. Paranoid. The year. I decided not to be a porn star because it would be bad for my character. Somewhere it was said he's a meth head. Yes, he certainly looked like it, didn't he, Trev? Dropped on his head. Just that thing going on. You know, I was watching that show called The Nick last night. I can only watch really one episode at a time. And one of the main characters is a doctor who is a cocaine addict. And he becomes a heroin addict. And you see these facial expressions. And this is what this guy is. And he's a proud Republican. Conservative Republican. And this relates to my morning fall. You almost have to just accept it that you're going to have people like this. They're going to do shitty things. So your trip to Walmart may be a little bit more eventful than you would want. And I'll tell you what, people see shit like that. Every time something like that happens, ladies and gentlemen, Amazon gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And why not? Why would you want to go to the mall? You know, it got to the point, the mall was nice in the 60s, right? Somewhat in the 70s. But then all the kids started going around, then the food court, and then there's all crazy shit, fights in the malls. It used to be fun going to a mall when you were a kid. You know, didn't cause any trouble there. Now there's trouble for you. Turn it up and play it again. Sound is poor. Okay, I'll play that again. I'll try that again. I'll try it again. I don't know what's wrong with this.
There was a shooting involving, multiple people, and then I go on later on to find it's a gay bar.
Yeah, right. And
So I think, oh my God, he's gay. I get scared of him. Oh my God, shit, he's gay. And he's not gay. So. Sit.
well, you guys have had conversations about that. You were.
Oh, yeah.
You
I was adamant.
yeah, you're adamant that gay is bad.
I'm a Mormon. I'm a conservative Republican. And we don't do gay. We don't do gay.
Yeah.
I can't get answers from the attorneys really, but they're saying that somebody's it's involved in a gay bar or some shit. I don't know. I don't know what the heck we have a gay bar. I don't know what's going on.
Well, he's accused of going on a mass shooting at a gay bar and killing 5 people.
Colorado.
Okay, well, that's shit. So if he's accused of doing that, I guy's not gay. I say that, but guy's not gay. There was a shooting involving multiple people.
So he's just glad that he's not gay. That's what he has to say. If anybody was going to be shot, it should have been him. Not those poor people. Just they're having a good time. That's all they were doing. And this fucker says the best line he can come up with is just glad he's not gay. I don't know. I hope there's no echo, folks. Yeah. Now, there are a lot of iron brinks out there. I've seen that kind of shit. And that mentality is the Russian mentality. They endorse that. The government endorses that type of behavior. We don't do gay. The type of ads over the last couple of years in Russia have been directed at homosexuals. It's sickening. It's sickening. I mean, I could tear myself apart with this kind of crap. And I'm not so sure this kind of thing didn't get to Dave. You know? I don't want to go into the thing with Dave. Dave's is it tough enough. But in my last conversation with him, I mentioned, if he thought that all these things with the conservatives had an effect on him, and he said, I'm sure it has something to do with it. That was 5 months ago. But I'm not going to hope that they get better, because they're not. That doesn't change. That's determinism right there. I don't know how old this guy is, but he's obviously in his 40s. And I'll bet you his father was a real doozy. Now, not every Mormon's like that, but Utah, some strange shit. Just like in Idaho with like posse comitatus. It seems like all the people went to these weird states. The only people I really look up to these days were the hippies from the 60s. I mean, I don't look the role. But if I ever had an exit interview in my life, like there actually was a God. And I was asked, were there any groups of people you felt exemplified what good citizens would be? I think that's all I could come up with. That the hippies had it right. At least somewhat right. It's the other shit that's the problem. So everything got turned around, in my life, as far as, I'm kind of bringing this back to my original commentary. Just about everything that I thought was true and good turned out not so much. And I've said all along that the only really good thing I've seen, a consistently good thing that I've seen, is just the dogs in my life. I could see that in other people's lives, the dogs. And Ricky Gervais said in his last show, he said, I don't know if there's a thing called a soul, but if there is, these dogs have it. Let's look at some commentary here. Kim, I was a hippie in the 70s. My sisters were older, so I went through every generation from the 40s on. You were lucky then, Kim. I couldn't get out of Utah fast enough when I went to Vegas. Yeah, I've never been in Utah, Trev. You'll have to tell us about it or something, because it's this huge state with so few people, and they're kind of weird. Pretty much every YouTube person from YouTube, this guy MOT called himself the man of truth. God, he was weird. He was like a stop clock, during the crisis in 2008, and he got it right. And then from then on, like he thought he was like this, mystic that could just come up with the truth, and people would follow him. Oh. Weird Utah. That's a weird fucking state. Yeah. One of my great friends was raised a Mormon, not anymore. He rebelled. when you see enough of the world and see enough of people, I think that's when you change. Hippies were naive. Movement died without the moment. Yeah, Abbie Hoffman, my wife personally knew him fairly well, actually. But it was later in his life. And he was pretty sick at the time. I mean, obviously what he did was important during the 60s. But him as an individual, because my wife knew him, like there's some things about him that were not really great. He wasn't a horrible person, but we'll talk about that later. So I'm gonna have Ron come on, we'll talk about it. But yes, my wife knew him pretty well enough. They got high once, so hung out a couple times. I can't read this card. Our world is so sad these days. Pets and wild animals comfort us or eat us. Yeah. Well, they're not very comfortable. That's the problem. You look at squirrels, they just want comfort, but they have to always look around because they're being tormented by these hunters. Like I wake up on Sunday mornings and steal this book. I think my wife has it in the next room. I'll have to get that, well, she has it. Yeah. So, Abbie Hoffman. Yeah, I think next week I'll have Ron come on again and we'll talk Abbie Hoffman because she had good stories about him. I just know that they were hanging out one time and she saw him and she said to her friends, I want to ask this guy who wants to come get high with us. And she did, and he said yes. And then after that, they knew each other. And but again, it was when he was on his way out, kind of. There was progress with the new laws, but corporations reverse. Dogs chase squirrels. Yeah, they do. Like my dog, he just wanted to kill a chipmunk. I wouldn't let it happen, of course. But he loves them, but they don't know how to deal with it, Instinct. We had a neighbor, talking about squirrels. She couldn't stand the squirrels climbing on her roof or something like that. So she trapped them in this tiny mouse trap where they get stuck in there, and it was cruel. And Ronnie went off on her and she released. Ronnie went after where the trap was and released the squirrel, and she gave her shit. I'm glad she did. Yeah, Joey. You know something about that, Joe? I won't say anything. Promise you I won't say a word. None of it mattered. Too many people for anything to work out. Yeah. Yeah, when I was watching Vlad Vexler, he was talking about the two major problems that we are facing that probably aren't talked enough about, and that would be climate change and the threats to democracy. But interweaved in that is overpopulation. I mean, in many countries the population is going down, but it's made up for in others. 8 billion people. Yeah. Yeah, you would. She was a weird woman. She it wouldn't dawn on her like these things feel pain. I mean, they were just being themselves, the squirrels. And it was caught in this tight little cage. And Ronnie said, "What the hell are you doing?" And it's danger for Ron because she had to open it up, and you don't know whether the thing's going to bite you or not. We've saved a lot of animals. But we've seen a lot of animals not make it too. And some people just don't care. I mean, they don't care. And I think I'm going on all different philosophical concepts tonight, but going into this idea of the Judeo-Christian ideal of dominion over the earth. It was horrible. Now we can see these animals as something for us to use and abuse because they can't do math. $8 million horses died in World War I. All those years of the whip. So the animals would do the plowing. Think about it. The pain. Horse racing. Greyhound racing. That's when you have to think. I mean, because we we're in our room here and we don't think about out there every day. I wish I could solve it. I want that button to solve it, So while we don't have that evil thing that would crush me every second of my life, certainly don't have that. On the other hand, we don't have the thing that can save us from all that. So guess who has to do it? That's right, you and I. And yet, of course, it's a drop in the bucket. But unless we do something, it's all lost. There was this groundhog that was kind of like in my wooded area in the back. And my neighbors are nice enough, I don't think they're hunters or anything like that. But both of them have like their own little sheds. And I think because I haven't seen the thing, that they probably did something to that thing. For me, I didn't care. Even if it kind of ate up my lawn, I didn't really care. As long as it doesn't get, in the house. I hope they didn't kill it. Bucket doesn't get filled without drops. Right. You're right. Keith could see his Superman would be an a-hole outside of a structure bigger than himself. Could he see his Superman would be an a-hole outside of a structure bigger than himself? Yeah, I have no answers, folks. I think you're going to go down like me, you fall and here it is. There's no solution to this thing. Nietzsche. Well, it certainly is enough to make you crazy, Keith, right? I mean, everything that we discuss here, whether it's Trump, evolution, cruelty, it could drive you a lot of places. Depression, abuse of drugs. I guess I've been lucky in that sense, personally. And I'm not holding up the trophy on this one. But as much as it's all very depressing, it hasn't put me out yet. That's right. Nothing is under control. We think there is. No, nothing's under control. So anyway, just to sum up some other things that I was thinking about this week. Trump with the documents at Mar-a-Lago. And I was just thinking, everyone really, really knows what the deal is. He shouldn't have had them. And all of these conservatives who seem to care about this country so much, they're willing to overlook that. For one reason. They really, really hate you and me. That's the reason. They'll overlook that. I saw 2 Hasidic Jews on Twitter being interviewed by The Good Liars by someone who was Jewish. He said, you did see what happened in Charleston. Jews will not replace us. But they're okay. They can overlook that because they like Trump. Even though Trump said there's some good people there. They hate us. They hate us so much that they'll go into a nightclub to kill people who are just out there to have a good time. They can't stand that you're having a good time. They want to take it away from you. The fun, the sex, everything. And God forbid you should get high. They're projecting their anger. The Aaron Brinks of the world. They're the people that make people get depressed. People suck. I mean, you folks are great. I'll tell you. But there's just so much wrong with the human race. It's just nice try, right? Nice try. To most people caring about this country as a story, yeah, it's a bullshit story. It really is. Anti-federal government was popular throughout the time. Yeah, well, they went after Big Brother, but they didn't realize that the real Big Brother was the business angle of it. Big Brother business. That was the one you had to look at. Big Brother was there to protect you from the real Big Brother. Big Brother business. Kinky. There are peaceful intellectuals and ignorant bastards. It's pretty much that extreme. Well, that's, I think, was it Theseus or Socrates? Plato? I can't remember. With the Republic. Yeah, I think it was Plato, the Republic. He believed that the more intelligent are the philosophers should be in control. And they had the guardians who would make sure that they protect the status quo. Excuse me. And then people were too ignorant to really take control of anything. They had to do the work. I kind of get that. But because of education, you think that we could have a society where everybody, strives to become educated. So we wouldn't get put in that position. But we're in for some shit now. Because there's one thing conservatives really hate, and that's intellectuals. And I'm like, I don't consider myself an intellectual. I wish I could be. I'm kind of pseudo. I enjoy studying things, but I know my limitations. But they take me out. Then you have to get more intelligent than intelligent and realize you make your own happiness and trial. Tempered happiness. How's that? Capitalism operates by not allowing others' thoughts to be spoken. Yeah, unless you can sell their thoughts. Well, capitalism wouldn't be that bad, or any kind of ism wouldn't be that bad if you had honest people doing it, in control of it. Problem is, these people who aren't honest themselves, like that son of a bitch. It's a big problem, lying to yourself. I'm a big on Stoic philosophy because it wasn't dealing with collapse. Yeah, well, we certainly need it, Keith. If my neighbor is suffering, how can I be happy? Right. You're right, Veg. How can I be happy? See, that's the thing. People, they thank God every time their neighbor's in trouble. Every time they survive a car crash and the other one doesn't. Yeah. That's what happens to them. Yeah. So, getting close to shutdown time, folks. And normally I would stay on a little bit longer, but I did so much work for the last 2 days just to try to get this room. I had to get behind things to paint and moving things in and out. And painting a ceiling. It's just, So it's really, really tough. But worth it. This is why a space program is good. Civilian Conservation Corps under FDR brought Americans together. Well, forget that now, though. That's the thing. It's divided we stand. I can't fathom being able to negotiate with people like Carly Lake anymore, like those kind of people. It's better to be divided. Encourages excessive psychopaths. Like Elon Musk. He endorses Ron DeSantis. Hard to believe, huh? No, should have believed. Not set foot in a church for a service since I was 15 and never will. Funerals and weddings only. Yeah, it's a complete waste of time. I'm the morbid atheist. But it's a complete waste of time. In my opinion. If some people are bored, like I have some neighbors, that's all they do is like go to the church picnic and give away free hot dogs. They must have a pretty boring life, though, if that's like their thing. But that's their business, you know. Who was it? The David Foster Wallace, whatever. He wrote True, whatever. Not forget Infinity or anyway. He used to hang out with church people. I couldn't do it. What is that? David Foster Wallace. I can't remember his book. That 900-page novel. Infinity. Infinity Jest or something like that. Yeah. But he used to my point was he used to hang out and go to these church dances. The Catholic Church could feed the entire world. I guess they could. Yeah. And, you know, atheists were looked so down upon in my early life. Now I be one. And I'm quite happy. That's the only way I could do it. I mean, if there were a God, I would accept that there is one. I wouldn't necessarily say it's good. But it's like learning from past mistakes. I could not read it. I tried. Well, this Keith, the book is like it's really long, and it's like Moby Dick, you know. Infinite Jest. That's the book. Yeah. Hi, Sandy. So anyway, I almost didn't come on tonight. I know, Joey, you had asked me about an hour and a half ago, are you going to have the show? And this didn't look like this at all. The thumbnail will show Ronnie was helping out. And it was just books, bookcases, dust, paint, everything. I just took an ibuprofen. Excuse me here. I was to Israel in 78. That made me even more weird. You know, Israel's got a lot of atheists there, which is kind of cool. But the problem is that the religious kooks of the political pool, you know, just stay away from like Jerusalem and go to Tel Aviv, and they're the ones that are driving the country in the right way, and the other ones, it's nuts, religious bullshit. You know, the whole Middle East is just religious bullshit. But we're not much any better. You know, just give it up and grow up. Religion gave some structure that would make much of what is happening today unacceptable. That was the point of God is dead. Yeah. Unless you realize humanity has a connection to caveman religion. Yeah. Nice color. Yeah, it was called Dreamy Teal. That's the color back there. Dreamy Teal. The only problem I had, Kim, was I got a gallon of paint, and it's a fairly big room, but a gallon's always been enough. And we got the walls done, and there were really only a few spots left, but it was on the ceiling, and then we had to do a second coat. So I rushed to Lowe's to get another can, and I put a hell of a lot of paint on. Had to. Like, you know how you do one coat and you do another coat? Well, sometimes I do triple coats. Whatever it takes to get this thing looking like it looks right. Yeah. A dreamy teal. I'm colorblind. I mean, I can see colors, but it was like a green, bluish type of thing, and I like that. The room's a lot darker now for me in here. It seems bright here the way I have the settings, but it's really not. It's really pretty dark in here. It probably looks more like this. I'll give an example. Because I'd like you to kind of see what the real color is here. I've raised the levels, but it's more like this. That's about what it's like in my room right now. Yeah. In fact, it might even be a little bit darker than this. It might even be darker. Let's see. Kind of like that. I should be like over here. The rule of thirds, you know. Just I like what you do, Veg. Because you get the rule of thirds. Because I like how you. I mean, I think you're on this side, but you do it right. I should always be like this. It's just easier for people to see. Yeah, I'll just do it like this. Let's do this all over again. No. Okay. I went to Lowe's only because I refused to go to Home Depot because I know one of the owners is a Trumper. Green, blue, yeah. Like I say, I'm colorblind. I mean, I can see colors, but I can't get any of those things right. And I didn't know it until I was 16. The thought experiment of imagining a god and wondering what he would think about what you're doing is useful. I don't know what we're doing here. You know what? It just is baffling, folks. It's a little too dark. What is baffling? The size of the universe. I mean, it's just if we are the only ones here, it really doesn't matter. We're so far away from things that we probably can't get there. The size of this thing. Now, in reality, the size may not be all that large. We just may be so minuscule. So it's all relative, of course. And that's something to think about. But the amount of space and the amount of planets and things, suns are just uninhabitable. It just seems like an absolute waste. And you see these nebulae and dust clouds, and they look gorgeous. But yeah, it's kooky. It's like Aaron Brinks. It's like he designed the universe. It's how bad things are. It's like things eating each other. Religion countries divide us, let alone fascism, dictated political parties. It's too much thanks to communications. Yeah, it's pretty sick. Unionized employees. Yeah, unions are really helpful. But remember Reagan just firing all the air traffic controllers? I don't give a shit about it. He just didn't give a shit. 100 years ago, newspaper was pretty much it. Yeah, J. Randolph Hearst, he was a real winner, huh? Radio, TV, computer, internet, social media, all came on at too much to handle. But again, back then, Hearst, he was a real son of a bitch. What if we were just in some planet kids die? Yeah, that's Twilight Zone. Well, that's even more interesting. You know, we could think of maybe the planet as an organism, or even the universe as an organism. You think about the sun. I mean, is the sun I don't want to say terrestrial limit of the sun, but then you have the aura of it. And is that the sun? Again, getting back to Theseus, you know, is that ship the wooden hull of the ship? Or is it more? Is it the captain that makes it? Is it the sailors? Or is it the combination? Or at what point? So it all kind of relates. I know one thing, we're here. Unless we're all fooling each other. Yeah, we're just a blip. God would prefer seeing people Cooperate, okay. Cooperate in great solution over people like animals. The reason we are not animals. God would prefer seeing people cooperate over people living like animals. You know, it really sucks is that people like myself, you want a fair universe, you want a fair planet, you want a fair home, those kind of things. And you want to know some answers that you don't ever know. Like even the great scientists in the 1700s, 1800s, there's so much they didn't know, and they die not knowing. It's like WC when he died, he said, "There's still so much left to do." It's like playing in a game that has 42 quarters to it, and you get to play 3, and you'll never know the outcome. It seems so self-defeating, So you just live. Yeah. So anyway, I want to thank everybody for coming by. Again, this would have been a little bit more in depth, more videos and such, but I had very little time this weekend, and just the way it is, I think next week will be better. Yeah. I'm not doing any painting for a while, right? So listen, everybody, take care of yourselves, and I mean that. Every second can be pretty crazy, you know what I mean? God Delusion example of detective software. Yeah. I got my Dawkins book back there. Yeah. So anyway, thank you everybody. Bella, good to see you. Epi, thanks. Thanks everybody, because I see 19 or 20 of you. I can't believe people showed up today. I didn't even put a thing out there until 20 minutes before the show. Not much of a show today, but yeah, very philosophical. I think it was the right way to go. I don't think I really want to get too much into politics tonight. I will next week, I think. But just looking for the truth like anybody else, right? You and I are the same person in a certain sense. We don't like suffering. We don't like seeing things suffering. Hi, Bella. Still good, Joe. Thank you, Veg. I appreciate that. Yeah. And I do appreciate that. It just hurts because, I'll turn off the computer and say, that wasn't a good show. And when somebody tells me it's good, it makes me even feel worse because I feel like shit. I remember watching it. I went to see a guy. He was a classical guitarist when I was into classical guitar studying. There's a guy named Vladimir Mikulka. He was a Czechoslovakian virtuoso. And I saw him in Philadelphia play. So we got to talk to him after the show. And nobody was talking with him. So I went up to him. Another person came up to him. And somebody said to him, good question. He said, look, we were all fat, just mind-boggled by your technique and your ability. But we want to know how you felt you played. He looked, he said, okay, I did all right. So, he was bored with himself. It was tremendous playing, by the way. I don't know if he's still around. He was a young man at the time, and that was probably in the 1980s. 84, I want to say. He said, I guess I did okay. That's all he said. And he was bored because we were just like standing around and, how's it going? Nice guitar. He's a great guitarist, though. His name is Vladimir Mikulka. And I believe he's from Czechoslovakia. Great, great player. He played the song called The Last Disco. I don't even know if it's out there. I have a transcription of it somewhere here. But it was that question that was asked to him. How did you feel you played? Oh my God, 10:30. It is impossible to achieve the aim without suffering. You have to invest in it. I suppose there are some things that don't seem like work, labors of love, but in general, you would be correct. Yeah, we are our own harshest critic. Yes, Veg. Yes. There'll never be a perfect show here. I think, see, I judge myself. I don't really watch my shows too much afterwards. Every once in a while, I'll just peek and see how the audio was. I'll think about the vocabulary that I use, my delivery. Yeah, I think, how am I elocuting things? Where am I stressing words? Am I using pitch? Am I using pause? Now, I don't purposely do that, but it's my experience with public speaking that if you're going to hold somebody's interest, you have to use a few techniques and you have to mean it. You can't just memorize something, but you've got to know when to pause, like even in music, because then you know that that's the perfect opportunity to emphasize something. It's through the pause. Or maybe go lower in pitch. Or maybe say something with a higher volume. So these are the things that, if I do look at it, I'll judge myself on that, not just the content. Because I do riff. I mean, that's just what I do. I would be worse off if I planned everything. And you probably should plan things, and most people do. But the good thing about the past is that I've been involved in politics and watched it enough over the years and read enough that there should be no problem doing this. Right? I mean, the content is here. I would be much worse for it if I tried to organize my thoughts in any definite show-type manner. I mean, I have an idea of where I want to go with things. Like, I knew that I wanted to talk about that fall because I knew there was something important that I was thinking back then and now. Otherwise, I wouldn't even discuss the fall. But it's more than just discussing the content. It's the delivery. Knowing when to begin and when to end. And that's how I judge myself, Ed. And I don't think I've ever had a show in that sense that I've really, really liked it. I mean, I've done some fun things. I remember when Paul and I did the reality report, I'd use the fake faces, and there were sometimes it really worked. It was complete improvisation, but it worked. I got to use those pseudo characters that I like using. But I think if you do have a live show, or it doesn't even matter, quite frankly, it could be a planned program. You have to use those techniques to make the listener comfortable, and I don't think I've done that yet. And it's got to be real. It can't be, oh, I'm going to pause here. You've got to mean it. Otherwise, you're just going to be monotone. It's got to be from the heart. And you have to have those techniques down. Because it's got to be natural, right? Otherwise, people don't believe you, nor should they, right? Just be yourself. Which one? A cringe. Okay, it's good to hear that. It makes me feel like cringe. I have to laugh. I can imagine. I can't watch this shit. I like your videos. They're great, but I'm just... That's very honest and very revealing, Veg. I never watch my videos. I cringe when I do. And I bet you do. You know. Yeah. 1 star. Okay. I don't know any of these people though. Yes, not just. Well, anyway, folks, I've overstayed my welcome here, but it's great seeing you all, or at least seeing your commentary. And watch where you're going, because remember when I went to bed last night, I forgot that I had all these things in front of me, and in the dark, you wake up groggy. Boom! Could have been really, really bad. Yeah. It's the way the universe goes. All right, folks. See ya.